I was wrong about Ante Sundaraniki.
Way too much screen time. I probably could have been removed. Really feel very stretched. But I give it a 5 out of 10. 5 out of 10. 5 out of 10. 5 out of 10.
Well, kind of. I liked a lot of things on my first watch.
I loved the presentation, the writing, the performances, and the music.
But I also thought the film was a little overwritten and took such big swings that rarely worked. But there was something about the film
That kept making me go back to it. And each time I rewatched it, it kept growing on me.
It's not like a film with so many complex layers that I needed time to understand. I mostly got what the film was trying to say in the first watch itself, but there was something else.
After 2 years and a lot of overthinking and rewatching,
I think I figured it out.
and the key to the puzzle is in its structure.
Let me explain. Ante Sundaraniki is a great romantic drama, not a rom-com. Now what's a romantic drama?
Well, it's in the name. It is a genre which combines romance and drama to tell a story about a central romantic relationship. These tend to be more serious and tragic than your usual rom-coms.
Fucking insane!
Most romantic dramas or romantic films in general tend to be more character and mood focused. But Ante, while being about the main characters Sundar and Leela, is actually more plot heavy. The plot here is not a bunch of physical events that drive the story forward, rather the parts of the story that the characters tell to each other.
Actually, parts of the lies that Sundar tells to other characters that drive the narrative.
This idea of stories being lies that we tell each other or sometimes to ourselves is the central theme of the film, and it also determines the structure of the film.
The structure is what makes it stand out from your typical confusion comedies where the hero is lying to the comedians, his father, the girlfriend, the villain, and whoa, it's so confusing and funny, ha ha ha.
But the structure of the film stays linear and boring. Ante is a film about lies, structured like a lie. And like any lie,
It's elaborate, confusing, and complex. From here on, this essay also might get elaborate, confusing, and complex. The film has two starting points, or rather two stages from where the characters start telling stories. One is the drama Sundar and Leela perform as kids, and the other is in the airport.
but in true Vivek Atraya fashion,
The film starts with the airport, which is the pre-interval point, and the whole of first half is actually leading up to this airport bit.
the drama itself is your typical message-oriented story about how education can solve caste differences and religious differences and everything. This leads to the co-director noticing Sundar's performance and giving him a chance to be in the next Chiranjeevi film, and for which he also has to go to the US.
But Sundar's family believes in this superstition that if any of their family member crosses the country, it's a threat to their life.
All these superstitions that the family believe are also another form of lie, which is something the film subtly puts across.
Sundar's mom speaks up for Sundar and convinces the family, and the final approval comes from the grandmother who plays the sitar.
Sundar is beyond excited and he becomes the talk of the town. But oh no, the co-director turns out to be a fraud who does child trafficking, and well, he basically lied.
Now the film cuts to adult Sundar, and it turns out this story is not being told to us, the audience, but to Sundar's colleague Soumya.
This is a narrative trick the film constantly does, when it wrongfoots the audience by making them think this is how the story is going. But haha, fooled you there, this is actually how the story is going. And this trick keeps getting played on top of each other.
Which gives the film that spiraling nature. This initial lie by the co-director affects the family in multiple ways. The father becomes extremely paranoid and starts making Sundar do all kinds of homams and pujas. The mother completely shuts up and stops speaking for herself in her life because she takes full guilt in buying into that
Lie. Because of this dynamic in the house and all the pressure being put on him,
Sundar becomes.
a pathological liar who uses lies to get away from his problems.
Here, they also introduce the idea of the Tadastu Devatal.
For people who don't know, these are supposed to be gods that say Tadastu at random points in the day, and whatever someone says at that point becomes true. Sundar still wants to go to the US somehow, so he tries to scam the Tadastu Devatas, but it doesn't work.
I love the way this sequence is edited, along with the music where, right when he throws the powder as a kid, he falls off the cycle as an adult.
This is a seamless transition into his adulthood. We finally find out that Sundar has been telling this entire story to Soumya so that she can lie further to the boss so that he can go to the US.
Soumya starts lying to the boss about how her grandma passed away, and this is intercut with the same lie, but of course the more exaggerated version of it being told by Sundar to his family.
This sequence ends with both the sides almost believing in the lie, and right then,
Soumya puts a break to the story and confronts
ఇప్పుడు
Sundar.
నిజాలు మాట్లాడుకుందాం చెప్పండి అసలు
మీరు ఎందుకు యూఎస్కి వెళ్ళాలనుకుంటున్నారు?
This is also to emphasize that even half-truths are equal to lies.
And now we cut to the drama again, but we see Leela's side of the story. Here we completed another loop.
Leela is the complete opposite to Sundar, and through the structure of the film where we see Sundar's story first and then Leela's story, we see how they both deal with similar problems in contrasting ways.
Leela, unlike Sundar, doesn't get any individual recognition for her acting, and she so dearly longs for it.
Leela has a much more supportive father through whom she discovers photography, and that becomes her identity. Their transitions to adulthood are also equally contrasting, where Sundar has a much more angsty and angry switch to adulthood, and Leela has a much more happy and contented journey towards adulthood.
Leela convinces her family to let her sister marry her boyfriend, and simultaneously we also see that she is in a supposedly happy relationship with some other guy.
Vivek loves having multiple threads of story happening at the same time. This keeps the pace always up and is extremely efficient. You only find out those details which are absolutely necessary.
The sister gets pregnant, but unfortunately, because of some complications, has a miscarriage. And this is again intercut with the troubles Leela is having with her boyfriend, who has some commitment issues.
He asks Leela for 1 year of time, so Leela lies to her father about a photography course and packs to the US. But turns out Leela is not here for her now ex-boyfriend, but for her current boyfriend Sundar. Maybe the biggest liar in the film is actually the director.
Anyway, now Sundar's boss wants him to be the new model. To reject this offer, he starts telling him yet another story.
What's amazing is, first we see Sundar's side of story after the drama, and we think, oh, that's what happened. But then we see Leela's side of the story, and we think, oh, surely that's all that happened, right? But no, there's a secret perspective, which is the love story where Sundar and Leela were together. Here we see Leela's acceptance healing Sundar's stress and trauma which was being put by his family.
Turns out that Amelia Island card was given to Leela by Sundar as a kid. But when asked,
Sundar, being Sundar, gets scared and lies.
నిజంగానా?
అసలు ఆ కార్డు చూసావు ఎలా ఉంది కామెడీగా.
Just when he decides to confess his feelings, he again tries his luck out with the Tadasu Devata, to this time the same sequence repeats, but this time he falls off the scooter. Since Leela's boyfriend was a photographer, Sundar decides to never be photographed again. I know this sounds like the most stretched reason, but when you think about Sundar's character throughout the movie, he basically runs away from everything that affects him.
నువ్వు హీరో కాలేదని సినిమాలు చూడడం మానేస్తావు, వాడెవడో ఫోటోగ్రఫర్ అయ్యాడని నువ్వు ఫోటోలు తీసుకోవడం మానేస్తావు.
ఎగ్జాక్ట్లీ.
turns out the photographer is actually Leela, and they finally speak after a long time. She tells him about her breakup, and Sundar helps her deal with it. They start falling for each other,
And Sundar for once tells the truth, and she of course agrees.
This is the only stretch of the film which is linear.
And this is the part of the story that is being told to us, the audience. Life becomes much more simpler when people are truthful, and hence the linear structure.
Again, as soon as Sundar and Leela believe that the only way to convince their parents is through lying, the film goes back to its spiraling nature.
The film, with its structure, has already shown us that our childhoods have a huge impact on how we deal with things as adults. Most of our trauma responses can be stemmed directly from our childhoods. Under a lot of stress to convince their parents, and now to show that they are going back to their childhood selves in the most efficient and visual way possible, we have.
మీరేమంటారు?
Through a lot of scheming and planning, Sundar comes up with two big lies. 1. Sundar is important for Sundar's family. 2. Leela is pregnant for Leela's family.
Before committing to these two big lies, they decide to commit to each other and exchange rings in front of the Amelia Island.
We finally find out the reason why Sundar has been telling this entire story to Soumya. Well, that's so that she can further lie to the boss, which would in turn get him to US. And they tell the two big lies. There's this saying in Telugu,
వెయ్యి అబద్ధాలు ఆడితే కానీ ఒక పెళ్లి చేయలేం.
which means that for one marriage to happen, you need to lie 1,000 times. The second half of the story shows the problem with this idea. In the first half, we see all of Sundar's lies basically working, and by the end, he even gets rewarded with Leela's love. In the second half, things start going off the plan right from the get-go.
The parents don't even show up to receive them from the US, and a suitcase mix-up.
There are 3 layers in this sequence.
1. Sundar's father, instead of keeping the things private, goes to the hospital and also arranges a big family get-together to inform them about the bad news. 2. Sundar is running around with the cycle to stop his dad. And 3. Leela's mom asks her to do a pregnancy test. This stressful and funny sequence ends with
The narrative again takes a big skip.
And match cuts with the flight to Sundar landing up to the office in a puncher.
To explain all this, Sundar again.
ఒక 1 hour టైం కావాలి.
Sundar confesses the whole truth to the boss and starts giving him details that led up to the puncher.
Remember when I said half truths are equal to lies? Turns out half lies are even worse.
Sundar's father hilariously just hears the first part of the lie with the impotency.
And he does not hear the part with Leela. His father absolutely rejects the idea of him getting married to a Christian girl, but instead tells him we'll lie to another family and get you married. Instead of dealing with the problem at hand, his first instinct, just like Sundar, is to lie and run away. And like most pathological liars, they believe that they are also being lied to.
He also suspects Sundar immediately.
నువ్వేవో దిక్కుమాల రిపోర్టులు తెస్తే చూసి నమ్మేసి వెంటనే జీర్ణించుకోవడానికి నేను చావన్ ప్రాష్ పొద్దున ఒక పూట తింటాను రా.
On Leela's side of things, the family tells the truth about her pregnancy to Joseph. Joseph is basically this Christian guy, the family friend, and is the perfect match for Leela.
On top of this, Sundar's father gets even more paranoid and precautious, so he makes him do a bunch of things to somehow change his impotency.
And this is why Sundar is in that getup. Even the Pancha song is in reverse, where you see him dancing with the Pancha throughout the song, but the story actually leads up to it.
Now on Leela's side, Joseph forces Leela to swear on the Bible and tell the truth about her pregnancy, and Leela's father stops it.
నువ్వు చెప్పినట్టు చేస్తే తనని నీతో పాటు మేము అనుమానించినట్టు. ఆయన ఈ గ్లిచ్లతో డౌట్లతో మా అమ్మాయి మీ ఇంట్లో వద్దు.
On the other side, Sundar, with the help of a doctor friend of his, actually convinces his father that, well, his son is in fact impotent. Sundar's father, instead of acting even more extreme, actually accepts the fact that his son is impotent.
And buys his pants back.
నీకు అవి నచ్చకపోతే మార్చుకో.
In this state, both these families agree to meet. There's a big confusion, things get heated up, and just then,
Leela's sister has some pregnancy related emergency, and both the families help each other out.
everything becomes hunky-dory. Wow, they're meeting, they're having so much fun, they're all happy, right? Right? No. I have a theory that if the film actually ended here, it would have probably made more money, because think about it, it's a clean, generic ending which most people would have been satisfied by. But the fact that the film goes even further is why it stands out as a classic. There's a nice sounding song about the two families coming together, but the lyrics signify the innate tension caused by all those lies that might come crashing down at any point.
With lines like, "You seem to be smiling to cover up the disappointments," and "What is the painful truth hidden behind all those impulsive lies?"
What if all those lies become true? What if the Tadastu thing actually works?
Soumya tells Sundar that her grandmother actually passed away, just like the lie. Then it turns out that Leela is actually pregnant. And finally, Sundar's father actually finds out about the impotency lie.
This spiral is probably the most extreme, because in the middle of it, the mom basically gives a resolution, but the narrative still goes on. His mom explains why these superstitions exist in the first place and what happens if.
చివరికి ఒక రోజు ఏది నిజమో ఏది అబద్ధమో తెలియని పరిస్థితిలో ఉండిపోతాం.
Then an accident. For one last time, it is revealed that Sundar has been telling this to both our audience characters, Soumya and the boss.
It turns out there is no accident, but they still go to the hospital. Turns out Leela has a rare tumor called dysgerminoma, which shows signs of pregnancy without actually being pregnant.
This makes it almost impossible for her to have kids.
Now Sundar's father slyly uses this as a reason to escape from the marriage.
Sundar finally walks up to Leela's family and tells the truth, the whole truth, and rightfully gets religion, gender, caste, and race all tell us a lie about ourselves. These lies, when deeply ingrained, can come out as prejudice. In real life, it takes years for people to get over these type of things. But in films, because of narrative convenience, everyone just changes because hero told the right sentimental monologue with the right sentimental BGM.
మనుషుల్ని చేసినాడు.
Ante goes a step further by putting both the families in each other's shoes to point out the obvious hypocrisies. And who better to tell about this than a mother?
అంటే సమస్య మనకి ఉంటే ఎవరితోనైనా కలిసిపోతాం. అదే సమస్య మనకి లేదు, తీరిపోయింది అనేసరికి వాళ్ళది వీళ్ళది ఇది సరిపోదు అది సరిపోదు అంటాం. అంతేగా. ఇప్పుడు ఒక్కటే అత్తయ్య గారు, విశ్వనాథ్ శాస్త్రి గారు మనవడు ఓ క్రిస్టియన్ అమ్మాయిని పెళ్లి చేసుకోవాలనుకుంటున్నాడు. ఆ అమ్మాయికి పిల్లలు పుడతారో లేదో తెలీదు. ఈ రెండు కూడా గోడలు దాటి వాడి సంతోషాన్ని చూస్తామా, లేకపోతే అదే 2 గోడల అవతల నిలబడి వాడెప్పుడు సంతోషంగా ఉంటాడా అని ఎదురు చూస్తూ ఉంటామా?
The biggest lie about screenwriting is that you need unique and incredible ideas to make a good film. But the truth is, great ideas get lost in mediocre writing.
With Ante, we see how even a simple idea can be elevated into something masterful. Artists like Vivek use all the tools at their disposal, be it structure, dialogue, performances, presentation and music, basically all the 24 crafts.
To tell a simple truth, or I guess a simple lie about ourselves.